Hello, welcome to Desktime Stories. This is a brand new podcast. It is all about sharing stories about how we had moments in our lives that challenge us and what we went through, what we learned along the way. This is not a show about experts telling us what to do. It's a space to share our experiences, how they made us feel, and what we learned. It's a place to connect through unfiltered conversations with some laughter along the way, all in the hope of creating better, happier workplaces. And for this very first episode, we chose a very special guest who is none other than Mr. Dave Dirks. Let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get right into the storytelling. So Dave Dirks is the Chief Marketing and Community Engagement Officer at Central Willamette Credit Union, where he leads brand strategy, digital marketing, marketing analytics, and community impact initiatives that drive growth in deposits, lending, and membership. With a career spanning credit unions, financial services, and consulting, including leadership roles at Hudson Valley Credit Union and JP Morgan Chase, Dave is known for blending data-driven strategy with creative product and brand development. He's also a passionate advocate for financial inclusion and local investment, helping organizations translate community needs into measurable programs and outcomes. He's the co-author of The New Marketing Analytics, which was published in 2016. Dave, welcome to Desktime Stories.
Oh, thank you, Luisa. It's great to be here, and congratulations on launching what is going to be, no doubt, a great podcast, Desktime Stories. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. With guests like you, I'm sure there's no doubt about that. Dave, so like I was saying in the little intro, the purpose of this podcast is truly to share stories. And so I was hoping that you could first help us understand who Dave is, the type of industries that you have been a part of, how long have you been in the workplace, the different roles that you have had, whatever you want to expand on would be great.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Luisa. Outside of what you've already said, I can say that actually my career started in HR. I actually wanted, when I was in college, to be in HR. I took a lot of courses on human resources management. So I kind of actually started my career there, got up to director, and then somewhere in my career, I had an opportunity to change careers to get into marketing, which I had not been in before. And so when I had that opportunity, I took it early in my career. So funny thing is I've been in marketing most of my career, but the very beginning of it was in HR, a completely different area, which I enjoyed. But when I got into marketing, I realized I really enjoyed that a lot. I've worked across a number of industries, although most of my career has been in financial services. I have had the opportunity to work in a couple of areas that have actually helped me become a better marketer overall. One is I spent a couple of years working for a leading regional advertising agency. So the whole agency experience was very, very helpful to me as a person and as a professional. And I've spent some time working as a consultant. So in 2008, when the Great Recession came, I had to kind of find work, and I created my own consultancy. And that led me to different kinds of experiences working with a lot of different kind of small businesses that, normally couldn't get access to a CMO. I actually worked I got into the baking industry too. So I had an opportunity as a result of that. One of the clients I worked with at the ad agency, we got along so well, and we really clicked together that they ended up hiring me from the ad agency to there, and they made, actually, I'll tell you the name of the firm. It's a great firm called Satin Fine Foods. They make satin ice, which is the leading fondant. It's a cake covering. So you have like buttercream. This is a sugar-based bake covering that's used all around the world. Anyway, so I had an experience. My role there wasn't marketing. My role there was more business development. I actually worked on international business expansion. So part of my responsibility was to help to expand some of our markets in Europe, like France and Germany. I did a lot of traveling there. And I opened up markets in China and spent a lot of time in China as well, flying around some of the major cities, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Guangzhou. So a lot of great opportunity, a lot of great experiences in between, mostly working in financial services, JP Morgan Chase for about 10 years, which was a great experience working for a great bank. And then, of course, moving into credit unions a few years back, I had that opportunity to do that back on the East Coast with Hudson Valley Credit Union. Loved the credit union experience. Really thought it was a much better focus on customers, now known as members. And I haven't looked back. And of course, I'm having a wonderful time at Central Alignment Credit Union here in Albany, Oregon. So that's kind of the short of it.
Oh my goodness, I have 5 million follow-up questions, so I'm going to try and focus because
Sorry
I can
about that.
only imagine the stories that you have from all the travels and from the different roles that you've been in. And so thank you very much for helping us put Dave in context a little bit better. What I was hoping that we could go into next is the story. The whole point of telling stories for me with this podcast is I think there's an opportunity for workplaces to be happier, better overall. And this is not necessarily a venting session. It could turn into that, who knows? But it's not necessarily the case. We're not trying to bash or judge anybody. It's just that we know we've all had experiences where we're like, I wish that would have been done better or differently, or that I could have handled it differently, whatever it is. So you have a story in mind. Can you take us back to that moment, as much or as little as you want to share? Again, we're not looking for names. That's totally up to you.
Right.
What was your role? What was your career looking at that time? What was happening in the organization? Just paint a picture for us.
Yeah. So this was early. I had just crossed over. I had made the transition out of HR. I had moved into, believe it or not, for a short period, training and development. So I was working for a large investment mutual fund company, a company that developed and sold mutual funds, started working in their training and development department, and then found an opportunity to go into marketing. And I took an opportunity to oversee their marketing of their financial centers. And anyway, so it was like that early part of my building my marketing career. So it was a very big move for me to move into that area. And the basic story really for me was, at the end of the day, it taught me how to better understand who I was working for and to make sure that I was being hired by a person I could work with. And, typically speaking, when you go for an interview for a job, they're interviewing you, and but you fail to realize, and what I learned from the story, I'll tell you in a second, it was huge for me. So here's the scenario. So I got to this company that did in New York City. I worked in Park Avenue. They had nice offices. Great company to work for, had a great reputation. And my initial first boss there was awesome. As a matter of fact, he was so awesome that a couple of years after I had left that, we decided in 2000, that book I wrote on the new marketing analytics was co-authored with him. So putting that aside, he was a great manager to me. He was the kind of manager that, he set the tone. Here's what we're looking to accomplish. What resources do you need? And kind of let me go out there and kind of like get it done, work with other people within the organization. So it was, awesome. But he decided to leave about halfway through my tenure with that company. And so I got a new boss. And so this boss was completely the opposite of what I've been used to in my career. And so I'm used to hands off, here are the guardrails, what resources do you need? Go and do what you need to do, but you got to make sure you get, reach the goals, to a micromanaging boss. Which was a shock to me, because this person, when I had a meeting with them, they had a little checklist, and they would go in and they would ask me every little detail, like details at the level that you would not normally ask if you were a level up. And the micromanaging that was going on, it was almost like 24/7. I almost felt like I was being compressed. You just had no air to breathe, because everything had to be measured, and you couldn't make a right turn because you had to go check for permission. So really, for a person who, for the most part of his career, had good managers to work with, they were disciplined, they were not easy to work with. They're not, they weren't pushovers, but they were the kind of managers that said, hey, like I said, here's what you need to do. So my crisis in my career was, here I am at my first marketing opportunity at a senior level, and I'm working for somebody that I can't stand. Like, at the end of the day, I want to poke his eyes out. Like, I can't stand coming into your office. I don't want to be near you because you're horrible. You're a horrible manager. You're a
Was it mostly
micromanager.
because of the micromanaging? Were there other elements?
No,
there?
and he didn't have any personality, so you couldn't develop a relationship because he was like a robot. I just didn't know what to do. And I wasn't, I'll be honest, I wasn't prepared for it. I had no skills in managing that. Like, what do I do? Like, how do I? So my first plan of attack was, okay, let's just make the best of this. And even though it's grinding micromanagement every day, and those of you out there who have worked for micromanagers know exactly, I can't get anything done because I can't think for myself.
No.
So my first track was, okay, I like this company I'm working for. It's been good to me. I like the work I'm doing. It's very challenging in marketing. So I'm going to try to make it work, right? I'm going to just do my best. And I did, although I would have to tell you, my patience for micromanaging was very short. Like, I learned for the first time in my career, an important lesson. Lesson number one, I am not able to work with micromanaging managers. Like, if I get hired by somebody who's going to micromanage me, then I might as well just leave. Literally, it's not going to work. I'm used to, give me what you want me to accomplish. Give me the resource. Here's what I need to accomplish the mission, a little bit of my Marine Corps background. And then, I'll let me accomplish the mission and we'll check in. Of course, I'm not going to run out there and go crazy. Mm-hmm. Check in, make sure, I'll get feedback from my manager or my boss, and I'll take that and, we go on. And in this case, it was like, I did not have the skill set to mitigate that. Did not. Mm-hmm. So what do? The only other options I have is I can either stay and bull myself through it and hopefully he leaves before I do, not the case right away. Or I can find something else, right? You get either I can work here and hate it, right? Do I want to come here every day? I love my job, but I have to work for a boss micromanager, which makes my job entirely difficult. And now, do I want that or do I want to just move? So literally, find another job. Right? That's my second thing. Okay, I have options. This is America. I don't have to stay there in misery. I can move. And so decision eventually there was an opportunity for me to move. It happened to be a good one, and it happened to be another marketing opportunity at a different company that eventually led me to go to Chase, which is, that was like a real jump for me there. So I did. So eventually I made the decision, as hard as it was, to leave a really great company that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed working with the people in the marketing department. They were great. But overall, I just decided I could not. So, my decision was, look, I can stay in misery and complain about it to my, which I wasn't a complainer. I would tell my ex-wife, I never came home with here's all my stuff I got to dump. So you can either decide to either figure it out, and if it doesn't work, you have to make another decision in your career. And sometimes as tough as that is, but you'll survive. The good news was, after I left, I worked for another company that led me in a couple of years, Morgan Chase, and I did that for 10 years plus, almost 11 years. So the dilemma solved, but I realized my lesson was, here's my third lesson. So whenever I had a position, like an opportunity to interview with a company for any job, I would ask the manager that was going to be that I had to work with, tell me about your management style. What kind of manager are you? Give me examples of how you like to manage. And those are questions that are embedded. These are questions I'm going to ask because, even if they try to hide it, there's little flags. They'll just
come out.
Yeah, it will come out. You'll see
what does that sound like? How would you know?
Well, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but they might describe an experience, but it's more of a micromanaging experience. Now, if you're a micromanager, you don't think you're a micromanager. You don't go around with a sign on your head saying, I am a micromanager, right? That's how they manage. So to them, a micromanaging boss or manager is a total, that's their thing. That's how the world works. I'm going to run everything so that you just are so discombobulated, you can't do anything. That's how they see it. So they're not going to point that out. So I ask a lot of questions around that. Tell me, and when they say, do you have any questions? Mine are 9 times out of 10 around,
yes.
I want to know your management. What's your leadership style? Tell me about a tough situation you had to have. What kind of people do you like to work with? Like when you hire someone, what are some of the traits that you want to see from that person in the first 90 days? I mean, it's okay to ask them because God forbid you end up going to a company and you make a move and you find out, your boss is a total nightmare and you've committed Harry, what are you going to do? Commit Harry carries, leave. So that's my whole story.
I think that anyone listening will be cringing and just reliving the situations because at one point or another, we've all had to experience that. And so, how long were you at that job where with a micromanager? Not with the cool boss, but
In
like with the
in total,
micromanager.
in total, or
Yeah,
just that time with the manager?
with the micromanager.
Oh yeah, less than a year. Less than a year.
Oh, less
Oh
than a
yeah,
year.
less than a year.
Okay.
I was with that company for many years, but I left them after when he came on board. Within a year, I had to rotate out because I just couldn't figure out a way to manage it, and it just wasn't working for me. Like we were just not, and it wasn't working for him either because he could tell that he was stifling my creativity. We're in marketing.
Mm,
We're supposed to be creative. We're supposed to be testing things. Not. But if you work for someone who's so micromanaging and so that part of the my theory is they don't want to be embarrassed. So it's a risk thing. So if they don't micromanage you, then they feel you might go out and embarrass them. Like, you're
mm,
going to do something that's going to cause them some kind of heartache. So rather than do that, I think I could be wrong. They end up just micromanaging everything. It's like, no, let them do it, So it wasn't a year. Then I left, but I didn't look back. Funny thing, he wasn't there for more than a year or two later himself. He left. He wasn't there very long. He was there less than I was there. And I surmise, because I could follow him on LinkedIn, I surmise he ended up going into his own consultancy on his own, which was fine. He did fine. He did that for many years. I'm guessing because he couldn't figure out a way to work in a corporate America in a way that was, so he
yeah,
realized the only person he could really micromanage was himself.
it's himself. Well,
Done.
I mean, if you have that level of control, like need for control, yeah,
Yeah.
you might as well just go at it yourself. How ironic. But I there's one question that I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned something like I didn't have the skill set to manage it at that point. Is there such thing? Like, is there a skill set? Like, what would be if you were, which you're not, of course, right now, but like if you were dealing with a micromanaging boss today, like what would you do differently? Is there anything, or are the options still the same? Like
I think the
either
options are
wait for
just the
them to
same.
leave or you leave.
Yeah, I think so. Because I can't change people. Like I'm in the business of trying to figure out how I'm going to change my manager if they manage the way they manage. Right. That's what you're buying when you go to a position or make a career move. So I
Mm,
wouldn't change a thing. But I'm much better now at understanding and looking at and asking the right questions so I can see if I can get them to, give me a glimpse. If I'm hearing, the right things and I ask a lot of questions around that, and they might not even realize I'm doing that. Like I'm like, oh, tell me about
mhm,
your leadership style, tell me about your managerial style. What kind of person do you like to hire? What kind of people have not worked out for you? Or it's that when you pull all that together, then you get a better picture of who they are. It's not
mhm, mhm.
foolproof, but to answer your question, I don't think if I found I was working for a micromanager, I'd have to work somewhere else. So,
The micromanage, it's more to identify
yes,
the situation when you're interviewing. That's the
yes,
key to this
yes.
story. Um, did you ever have to turn down a job because as you were interviewing them, you're like, "Oh, no, 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 red flags."
Yeah, great question, Louisa. Not turn down, but just not pursue. So I would get into, and then once
Uh,
one or two interviews, and then you realize, once you have enough red flags, it's happened a few times, I would say, in the course of my career at large, a few times where I go, I don't think so. Thank you there. Thank
uh-huh.
you though for the opportunity to, to interview, but I appreciate
Mhm.
that. Bye-bye.
Gonna move on. I think that's just wise. And it might be hard when no appealing job that looks
Yes.
on paper, but at the end of the day, I mean, your story just really reflects. I think it's Gallup that says that people don't quit jobs; they quit their managers, and this is a great story
Yes.
that shows that. What from your story is the last part. So this person truly was a gift, at least
Yes.
to those people that got
Yes.
to work with you after the fact, because that led you to another thing and to another thing. So I guess my question is more about the positive side of the story. And when somebody is in that struggle, like, oh, I'm dealing with this micromanager and I'm looking for a job, I feel that sometimes we can get stuck in a lull, like in a funk that is negative. And how does
Yes.
one see a positive future?
Well, it's risk, right? You can stay
Mm,
and be miserable, and everybody
mm,
associated with you, including your family, is going to be miserable because you're miserable. Now, I will share a little personal story from my family life. My father. My father was a butcher by trade, right? He's first generation German, came over, had a butcher business. He was a tough guy to work for. I worked for him as much as I could as a teenager. Um, but he had worked for other people too before before he got into his own business. And he would always complain about all the people he worked for. Just when at the dinner table, it's like, so I got to listen to that as a kid. I got to filter that. And he never worked for anybody that he apparently liked. Now, I think that was more him than the people he worked for. But so I was already as a young person, I was already in tune with, you got to make sure that you make the right decision. Dad's coming home. That means he doesn't really like what he's doing. He's got to do it because he's got 4 kids. He's got a house. He's got to
mm,
make sure he provides. And I think that's where a lot of people, that's a big, I know people, people who will work for companies they don't like in positions that they don't necessarily like, or for people that they don't necessarily like, or combinations of all three,
mm.
because they're afraid to make the move. Like, it's a big move to go, I think I'm going to start. People are like, I'm going to look for another job. But most people like talk. To make that move and really like do that in a way that like you really, that takes some effort and some, if you're in a cushy situation, you got money coming in. I don't know. I think it's a very tough decision for people to make. And I understand why, because it's like, you got all other things to think about.
Right. Yeah. Very tough. Well, I thank you very much for sharing this story, because I think a lot of people can relate to it. And there are a number of lessons here. And maybe there should be red flags to look for in a micromanager during an interview or something like that.
Absolutely. If I
We'll
had
see.
AI at the time, I probably would have done that. That's true.
Yeah. Well, Dave, thank you so much for contributing your story. I can imagine I will tap you for more stories in the future, because I'm sure they're endless. But before we leave and wrap it up for today, I was wondering if there's anything that you would like to share about you or what you do.
Yeah. The only thing I have is, and you mentioned AI, I have to say the advice I have for folks that are out there looking at their work world and how artificial intelligence is going to affect it. Look at me in marketing. It's a big area where artificial intelligence is already having an impact in a very positive way. I would say, be open to using those tools as they come up, and embedding them in your career, and becoming positive around what AI can do for you. I've already seen a great opportunity, I've been doing a lot of things in my own work that have been AI based, that have been helped me, move the needle or get ideas on different things different business challenges. So the best I can tell anybody, when I did my book, The New Marketing Analytics, AI wasn't a thing. Like, it wasn't where it is. AI has always been around for a long time, but back in 2016, which seems like eons ago, it was a different case. Today, I think whatever career you're in, embrace AI and understand how you can use it in your work to make your life not only easier. I wouldn't say it's easier, but to make it more. You can solve more problems. Reduce the amount of stress in your life, because it doesn't take as long to do things as it did, because you have a baseline to work with AI.
Yeah, leverage the tools for sure.
Yes.
Well, Dave, Dirks, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you greatly at Desktime Stories. And I hope that we can meet each other again real soon.
Thank you, Louisa. Congratulations on launching Desktime Stories. It's going to be great. It's going to be an awesome opportunity. I look forward to plugging in and learning more from your podcast.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to Desktime Stories. If today's episode resonated with you, we would love to hear your story too. Fill out a short form at desktimestories.com, and you could be our next guest. See you next time.